In the fired employee video, we saw a scenario where a female employee was trying to fire a male employee manager who had worked for the company for 2 years. In the scenario, you see the employee approach him in a very kind and gentle manner, um, but the urgency of the tone and the conversation was lost with the male employee. He thought it was just a casual conversation, letting him know about what was going on and stuff. Um, and it took her quite a bit to get around to the fact that the male employee was being let go from his job. This can be a problem because if you're going to have this conversation with somebody, they need to know right up in front, because it can lead to a very tense situation or an awkward situation when you hear all these things about how well their job is going and everything like that. And it can just make the conversation awkward for both the employee being fired and the employee firing the other employee. We saw the female employee struggle with some of the key things that we learned about how to fire somebody. She had a hard time telling the employee that he was fired. She didn't have a severance package ready to go. And the tone was very lackadaisical and not forceful. She used words and phrases like, well, or we'll have to just find something else for you to do. In which case, that phrase to me tells me that the employee's job just might not be there, but we'll find you another job within the company. And that's not really what was going on here. And the reasoning for firing this employee was not very defendable or concrete. It was just all about imaging and rebranding and stuff, which is slightly defensible, but not the type of reason that an employee who's being fired would like to hear. They'd like to hear something a little bit different or more concrete about their personal work or their job and that kind of stuff. The other thing that was not mentioned was anything about what the health benefits would be or a reference pack or reference and such. And the employee was just kind of left kind of a fish out of water kind of scenario. So in order to correct these mistakes by that employee, the alternative scenario to firing this employee would first start with not conducting it in a public space where anybody can walk into. So in this case, the female employee would need to approach the male employee and ask, hey, can I have a conversation with you in my office? In which case they would both travel to the office and she would sit down and tell him, Paul, I've asked to speak with you today because the company is going through some rebranding and restructuring, and because of this, we are going to have to let you go. We will ask that you not work your shift today, and you will be able to use the accrued vacation time that you have, and we will provide a reference for you for any future jobs. We're sorry to let you go, but with the new restructuring and such, your job is just not available anymore. In which case then afterwards, the employee could ask questions, we could give them a defensible reason, talk about behavioral issues if there was anything, or why they were specifically being fired. But in this case, the tone needs to be forceful, it needs to be direct, and it doesn't have to be long-winded or anything. Within the first 30 seconds or so, an employee should know they're being fired and give them time to process, but not allow them to interact with employees to create a toxic environment for the rest of the employees or future hires.